Welcome to Nerd House. I'm your host, Matt Day, and today we're going to be talking about what brought me back to the world of Xbox. I just recently picked up an Xbox One S, and this is the first Xbox console that I've had in a long time. I've kind of had a bit of a love-hate relationship with Xbox and all the different generations over the years, and today I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about it, get a little bit nostalgic, and just kind of express my whole history with this console. Growing up, I was always a huge fan of the original Xbox. This was the very first console that I actually got for myself. Growing up, my brother and I, we always had a console in the house, and we always shared the console in our living room. Everything from the original NES all the way up to the PlayStation 2, it was always kind of like the family system, and it's what me and my brother both used. And even my dad from time to time would play like Super Nintendo and even N64 games with us. But the original Xbox, I got this not that long after launch, and I wasn't expecting it, but I came home one day, and to my surprise, my dad had bought me an original Xbox and two games. WWE Raw, because I have been a lifelong pro wrestling fan, and also a copy of Max Payne, which is still one of my all-time favorite games today. So whenever I got home and I found this, and I was told that this is my console, this is something I can play in my room, I can keep it myself, I obviously shared with my brother, but it was this kind of thing that it was the first time I ever had a console that was like, this is mine, this is my console, and I was blown away by the fact that I actually had my own console, and it was a console that I had been wanting ever since I first started hearing about it in the magazines and at the local game store. Game Crazy, if anybody remembers Game Crazy, it was inside of like a Hollywood Video. That was like my second home for several years, and I was dying to get my hands on an Xbox. So I was blown away by this thing. Halo and Halo 2 were my life for years. I lived and breathed those games. As a matter of fact, my mom is such a saint that whenever Halo 2 was coming out, she not only took me to the midnight release, but the few hours leading up to midnight, I was actually in a Halo 1 tournament they had at Game Crazy, and my mom was willing to drive me there and stay in line with me and actually let me be in this tournament whenever I was a kid and was with a bunch of grown men. And she stuck it out with me, and then, I played it pretty much all night, and then obviously went to school the next day, but still, it blows my mind the fact that she hooked me up like that. So, Mom, thanks again. But I absolutely loved that system. I have so many good memories playing those games and just that system in general with my friends. This was back before, any of us had Xbox Live at the time, so a lot of this was just my friends and I playing, here in our basement, but it was just super, super fun. I always loved that system. So when the Xbox 360 came out, I was dying to get my hands on one because it was the, next generation of my favorite console ever. And I was lucky enough to pick one up at launch, and I was blown away by this thing. I absolutely loved everything about it, all the changes. I loved the new controller, the whole interface. This was my first time really basically getting into online multiplayer with Xbox Live on games like Halo 3 and all kinds of other things. And even the graphics, I remember, those just blew my mind at the time. I remember watching a cutscene in a game and thinking it looked like I was watching, a real-life movie, which is funny how that translates now, looking back, but still, for the time, those graphics were just absolutely incredible. Now, for a few years, that was my go-to console. I loved that thing, and I did everything on it. I loved everything about the games, the controller, the interface, all of that was great, but I was having some issues, and the issues continued for years, and I was so frustrated. One of the issues, obviously, we all remember the red ring of death, where it would just overheat and die on us, and Microsoft did replace consoles, but it was still just it was really frustrating. If you ever had it happen to you, it was extremely frustrating. On top of that, I had issues with Xbox Live with connecting and disconnecting. I had issues while I would still be connected. It would just randomly kick me out of games saying, an error had occurred. Even though my internet was just fine and everything else was working just fine, I knew it wasn't my internet, and I tried to get Microsoft's help on it. For a little bit of time, I was being charged double every month for Xbox Live, and couldn't really get that situated either. I was just having a lot of issues, and it was really, really frustrating, and eventually I decided to give in. As much as I loved everything about, the games on Xbox and the controller and all that, I had to give in because I was just overly frustrated. So I sold my 360 and I was done with Xbox. I was hell-bent on staying far away from it because I was so frustrated. So I sold the 360, I picked up a PS3 and a few games, and that was it. I wasn't looking back. And, there were a few games that I enjoyed, and eventually I picked up a PS4, which I still have. And, I really enjoy the system, but for me, with the PlayStation, I never became fully immersed in that world and those exclusives and all the other games. For me, I basically, when it comes to the PS3 and PS4, I would have a few exclusives, and that was really about it. The Last of Us, when that came out, I bought it, fell in love with that game. That's probably my all-time favorite game. On top of that, The Last of Us Remastered for my PS4, I bought it again because I love the game so much. And, there are a couple other exclusives, the Uncharted series, Horizon Zero Dawn. There are exclusive games that I've had a lot of fun with. But for the PlayStation, I really only pick up a few games every year. Maybe one of the big exclusives, and then a couple of other titles like the latest WWE 2K game. I always end up picking those up. Maybe a couple indie games here or there. But the PlayStation, for me, has never just been like, this is where the games are. That, for some reason, has never applied to me or never really clicked for me. And that was one thing I always missed about the Xbox. The Xbox, the original and 360, to me just felt like I was all in on that system and all the games I could find. It just, for some reason, that was where it really, really hit home for me. Then at E3 this year, Microsoft announced that they're going to be doing backwards compatibility for the original Xbox games. Backwards compatibility might not seem like a big issue to a lot of people, but for me, it's huge. I can't stress this enough. This is something I've always wanted from my PlayStation because I had the PS2, I had the PS3, I had a PS1 as well. And the backwards compatibility thing, for me, I would love to be able to just take some of those old games and throw them in my system and start playing them. There's the PlayStation Now, which is the subscription service, and you're streaming the game. You're not actually downloading the game like you would with Microsoft's Game Pass, but it's not ideal. Streaming is not ideal. Having a limited library is not ideal as well, and it's just something that for me, it's never been appealing enough to actually go for it. I love the idea that I can go buy a physical disc from a game store and put it in my Xbox One, and regardless of whether it's 360 or the original Xbox, if it's on that backwards compatibility list, it's going to work just fine. I absolutely love the concept of that, and it seems like that should be a no-brainer for PlayStation, but for some reason it's not. So after hearing the announcement, I started thinking more and more about the Xbox One, and I hadn't touched or even thought about an Xbox console in years. I completely stayed away from it. But after hearing this, it really got me thinking, more and more about those classic Xbox games that I loved, Xbox 360 titles that I loved, and a lot of my friends that have Xbox Ones, I started asking them if they're having any, bad experiences with it, and they all had nothing but great things to say. They said that this is a really, really good time for Xbox, and if I was going to get back into it, now would be the time. And honestly, I really, really enjoyed hearing that, and that was one thing I missed, was the fact that, my friends in real life that I talk to on a daily basis, the majority of them are playing Xbox games. So the whole world of online multiplayer, it hasn't really been something I've done for years because I've basically just bought, games for the PlayStation and just played campaigns. I didn't do a lot of multiplayer online for the PlayStation just because I love that aspect of my friends in real life actually playing with them. And that's what I missed so much about the Xbox 360 experience that I had. So initially, the idea for the Xbox One S was for me to pick one up and use that as a way to not only play some old games, but also be able to create some more content for this channel for Xbox exclusives, things like that. And so I found a really good deal on one. I couldn't pass it up. So I ordered it, and then I waited. I waited for what felt like, forever. This is an old console. Not really old, but, it's not brand new. This has been out for a while now. But as soon as I placed that order, I felt like I was waiting for a launch day for a title because I was so excited to try out Xbox again because I missed it so much. And so it finally arrives. I set it up, I install the Halo Master Chief Collection, and I immediately start playing through the original campaign for Halo Combat Evolved, and I was right back into it. This was one of the most nostalgic experiences for me in a long, long time. I remember playing this game for the first time and many, many times over, both by myself and co-op with friends, and I was right back in that mindset of this is where I'm playing games. This is the system for me. Then I grabbed Skate 3 for the 360 and threw that in there, and that felt right at home because that was like my daily game for years. Skate 1, 2, and 3, those were my games that I played at least once every single day. And being able to play that again, that was great. And it's because of that backwards compatibility. Being able to do that is a huge bonus for me. I've already created a list of backwards compatible games that I loved and other games that I never got to try out as well. So that's just adding on top of this. Not only is there a good library of Xbox One games, but I have so many other games that I missed out on or games I haven't played in years. It's super exciting to me that this is an option. When I first load up Max Payne on my Xbox One S, whenever that eventually becomes backwards compatible, it's going to be a special experience for me. I'm not going to lie. That sounds ridiculous that I'm that excited about it, but it's just going to be such a nostalgic thing for me, and I love feeling like that. So I'm super excited about this. Obviously, I hope you guys enjoyed this little trip down memory lane with Xbox. For me, I tend to talk a lot about this kind of stuff, so hope you guys did enjoy it. Obviously, you can expect plenty of Xbox One content on this channel, both new games and old games as well that are backwards compatible. Really excited for that. So if you guys have any requests or suggestions of games that you think I should check out or games you'd like to see me talk about on this channel, please let me know. So thank you guys for stopping by Nerd House, and I will see you guys next time.